So, continuing with my look at John Carpenter's horror films, primarily 3. Again, I might get to some more, time permitting, and I will be doing all of John Carpenter's films eventually. So, following the success of Halloween, which was a big breakthrough for him and everything, he did switch to a few things a little different. The next thing he did was a TV film, which, now looking back over this, I remember I did see that. I remember that with Someone's Watching Me, and this woman's being stalked and all that. And so technically that's a horror film too. It's nothing supernatural, but a woman being stalked by a creep. But it's a bit removed from what Halloween was. And then he did Elvis, where he gets to work with Kurt Russell, and that becomes important later on for 2 other films. Yeah, one we'll get to shortly. And I saw that one too at the time. I remember watching that. So there you go. He had those 2 projects, and then after that he returned to theatrical release films with The Fog. And The Fog is one of my all-time favorites. It's not as strong as Halloween is, but it's got a lot of cool elements to it. There was a remake of this as well. It's terrible, so you just stick with the original in The Fog. Now, The Fog, it owes a lot to old horror stories, that it begins with an old legend about this town, and there's this scandalous history to it that people didn't know about, but they find out. And there's an old drunk priest there who's a descendant of the founders, and eventually he finds this old diary, I guess, from his grandfather or great-grandfather, I'm forgetting already, but anyway, one of his ancestors, admitting to this crime that they committed, where there was this ship that contained a crew of lepers, and they were looking to set up a place to live, and that would be their leper colony. But instead, these guys didn't want to deal with that, so they tricked them, killed them all, and stole their gold, and used that money to found the town and all that. So this was the great crime that creates a curse that is going to be visited upon them because they're about to celebrate their anniversary and all of that. And so that's the setup and the motivation and explanation for what happens, because this one is very much in the supernatural, as you basically have these ghosts looking for revenge. So our cast, along with the priest, consists of people from this little town. And the actual star of the film is Adrienne Barbeau, and she's this lady who does this radio show at night. And she does it from a lighthouse and all of that. So that's what it is. But of course, with Halloween success, and Jamie Lee Curtis is in this film, but she's in a much more of a supporting role than the actual star. Yet, of course, she appears on the cover. I mean, the poster, rather, of the film. But that's the way it goes. So anyway, and then the deal with Adrienne Barbeau's character is that she has a young son, and the boy finds what he looks like this coin washing up on the beach, but then it magically turns into this piece of wood, which apparently came from a bit of the ship that the lepers had been on. And it's kind of a creepy thing. He gives it to his mom, and for whatever reason she holds on to it and brings it with her to do her radio show. And as she's looking at it, weird things happen. It pours water out and fries her tapes of radio spots and promos, and it then sends some kind of weird message through the tape, and then it spells out 6 must die, and then the thing catches on fire. So I kind of lost count. I don't know if they managed to keep all 6 they wanted to kill, but that was going to be payment for the curse. They kill right off the bat the creepiness of these guys that are out at night in a boat, and then the old ship appears with the fog, and those guys show up and kill them all. the killings in and of themselves is very dark and in shadow, so you don't have to see the horrific nature of it as you would in later films and whatnot, of course. But still just as creepy. The sounds, you hear it, the blades going through, and this one poor bastard, it gets his eyes poked out. Oh, God. It's really bad. And all of that. So, well, the next morning, the guy comes looking for it's his boat and his crew, and hey, they didn't come back home, and he's the guy who he picked up Jamie Lee Curtis as his hitchhiker, and I guess she's a woman trying to be a photographer or whatever. She's just traveling around. And you know what? I think you could just guess that she's Laurie Strode, and she decided to get away from it all and go out for some adventure in the countryside to get away from the horror that she experienced. And wouldn't you know it, one of her friends turned out did survive and becomes an assistant to Janet Leigh's character. So you do have Jamie Lee Curtis and her mother together in a film, and that's all well and good and all that. But no, these are different characters, but still. So she's just, she stumbles into this town. She hooks up with this guy. They literally hook up and all that. And I don't know, I guess she likes him, so she's, hanging with him, and then finds herself in this weird, horrific ordeal where they find the ship and the crew's all dead and they're brutally murdered and all this stuff. And then they have a scene where they take the body back to the morgue, and they can't quite figure it out because it looks like, even though it's only been a matter of hours, it looks like the guy has been drowned like months ago, and other the decomposition. But it's just, it's obviously the effects of this supernatural whatever it is. And there's a scene where the body gets up and walks over to her, then collapses again, and it's like, what the hell? But it leaves a message trying to tell them something. So things like this keep happening. Of course, the effects of the fog itself is one of the great ones of how they do it. And a lot of it, of course, is just the reverse photography or what have you. But it just has the eerie good effects, and it works very well. And then with the creepy ghosts walking through it and everything. You only see briefly some of them a little bit with Adrienne Barbeau fighting with them and stuff like that, but that's all you need, really. And so the drunken priest, who was already obviously a very broken and depressed man, ends up saving everybody by he finds that his grandfather had buried some gold within the church. And they find it, and he had melted the gold down into a cross. And so he offers that up to the leader, Blake was his name, of the ghosts. And he grabs it, and there's this big glowing thing, and there's it was sort of an eruption, if you will. And then they all disappear. And so it's like they got their gold back, and that cancels out the curse, I guess. And then the fog, goes away and disappears. Fortunately, Adrienne Barbeau survived. And her son's safe with Jamie Lee Curtis and the other guy, and everything's fine. The only thing, and I've always enjoyed it. I loved its mood and effects that it had, and just the ambiance of it, if you will, and the environment they find themselves in. It all works well, and it's adds to Carpenter's ability of photographing all this and shooting it and all that. But the ending, which, I love the movie, but at the same time, I'm like, so they come back to kill the priest. So, I know they're magic and everything, and it's like, well, everything disappeared, and they were done with the town, and he was a direct descendant to the guy who had betrayed them. So they come back for him, but it's kind of like, I would have thought they'd do it. Maybe if he had been wondering about that and he ended up at the beach, and staring out at the moonlight and wondering, why not me? Why didn't they take me? And then all of a sudden, a creepy hand reaches out of the water and pulls him in. Maybe that would have been better, but it's just kind of like, and suddenly, boom, they're back again. The fog comes back into the church and kills him. Other than that, though, I thought it was a good little horror movie. It's not on par with Halloween, but it's not bad. It's pretty good. I really like it. And I did see the remake, and once was enough. They did a series. They did quite a few remakes of John Carpenter's films, and none of them are any good. The Thing was interesting. The one they did for The Thing is that it's a prequel to the original. That's different than what they did with the others, and but it's ultimately kind of unnecessary. It's just kind of interesting. It doesn't bother me as bad as the Halloween remake and the Fog remake. But anyway, speaking of The Thing, that'll be the next one that we cross into, well, I'll do that there. But The Fog, I don't think it gets as much notice as some of his other films, certainly not as much as Halloween and The Thing. So do check it out. Do yourself a little Halloween treat this October, because it's a good one. Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness. So many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin.